Okay, so I've kicked off the recording. Let me share my screen. Okay. So without further ado, a couple of minutes past the hour, we'll kick into this webinar. Thanks for attending, as I mentioned before. This webinar topic is basically looking at how you would set up UniPhi to go from initial prospect of a person through to a proposal to that organization, post-contract management, sales, profitability tracking, and then analysis of that performance as a collective organization back into more prospecting. So virtuous circle included in that is obviously resource planning, capability assessment, and profitability. Okay, so the idea of this webinar came about based off a blog post that I did a couple of weeks ago, and so it's a nice place to drop to basically go through what we're going to cover. I've got the green square around this, but I hope someone can jump in if they don't see virtuous circle enterprise resource planning on their screen at the moment. If that's not what you're looking at, then I'm not sure what screen I'm sharing. All good, thank you. So basically there's 14 points. So you can see it's quite an ambitious hour. So I'll be keeping things relatively high level. I'm then suggesting that I pick off subsections of these 14 groups of 3 or 4 at a time and do a series of webinars on this topic next month and into December. Main reason for that is that there's quite a sort of broad number of new clients who are starting out, and they're probably doing 2 or 3 of these bullet points, and I thought it might be worth just conceptually getting out there the sort of end-to-end process. And the key within all of this is to understand that each company will do it differently and they'll have different elements, but that doesn't mean that you can't still have, as a concept, this end-to-end 14 steps being sort of controlled or at least influenced through architecture and process through UniPhi. Because one of the things that we're about, if I come back to this slide, is being this one application to rule them all. And so in this example here, we're talking about integration with other systems. So a lot of businesses will have, and there are really good CRM applications out there doing a whole bunch of different CRM activities that you may want them to do. And so as an example, we use Campaign Monitor to manage our email campaigns. And so we're not expecting at any stage that UniPhi would be a one-stop shop. We're not a corporate accounting system, so we integrate with accounting systems. And so through this presentation, I'll talk about some of the ways you can go about integrating, some of the things we're doing in our development pipeline to assist with that integration in some of these areas in this inner Venn diagram where we know we're going to have to pick up capability to harness information stored in other systems. But UniPhi is still the umbrella application. It's the core portal into analyzing information across your portfolio of projects for our clients. Is basically our vision is UniPhi is the one application to rule them all. And so if I go back to that blog post for a moment, what we're talking about is right at the beginning, capturing and tracking conversations from prospects as they move into leads, assessing the go, no-go opportunities that those leads generate, either through RFPs and tenders that they send to you, or just through asking you directly for some quoting information. Facilitating the estimate of new bids. So this is functionality that's UniPhi 17 related. Risk adjusting those bids, so building up an estimate, cash flow forecasting it, but risk adjusting that cash flow forecast so that you can get a combined committed cash flow plus pipeline cash flow that's actually reflective of likelihood. It's not just banking, 100% of the bids that you're putting in. Convert those bids to wins or losses depending on success. Baselining that once you've gone post-contract, so baselining your effort, baselining your cash flow, baselining your total value for that project, updating forecasts and tracking actuals against that baseline, using timesheet data to basically enhance the ability to track that progress. So we're up to 8. Invoicing, then obviously the completed work, managing the assessment of earned value against that completed work and original baseline. Profitability, both in terms of actuals to date and at completion. Backlog, how much committed work you've got still to deliver, and looking at book to burn, how much you've actually invoiced versus how much you've won in the month. All of those metrics, there's like 1,000 metrics that then come out of that. Consolidating all of that project by project into portfolio aggregates so that you can look at total backlog, sector profitability, company book to burn, corporate cash flow, over and utilized and underutilized staff. And then using all of that analysis in that consolidated portfolio to loop back into the beginning again on new marketing campaigns, new target markets, new prospects, new leads, and basically continuing the process on and on. So that's the concept. I believe we have it pretty seamless now. There were definitely elements that needed to come into UniPhi 17 to make it that way. And I'm basically going to take you through in the next 40 minutes a high-level view of each of those steps. Okay. So we obviously start in a UniPhi system, and we're going to start with prospecting. And this is where integration will come in quite a lot with other applications. I mentioned that we use Campaign Monitor. We're going to look at something there in a minute. There's a whole bunch of CRM tools out there that do a whole bunch of different things. There's Google Analytics, there's HubSpot that pulls that data in. They all have APIs, as does UniPhi. And so this is the key, is that even in your own strategy, you can start to leverage most of these off-the-shelf marketing tools and UniPhi's API to make this as seamless for your particular solution set as you want. But what we'll be doing is picking what we think are the leading elements of those apps and dropping our integrations into their API sort of pool. So if you go to any of those key CRM sites, they'll have like API connectors to different things, and they'll work through with partner organizations to do that sort of stuff. And so, for example, in accounting, we've already got integrations with MYOB and Xero that are in their marketplace. With Microsoft, we've got integrations with Outlook in their marketplace. So you can go to their marketplace, search for UniPhi, and add those add-ins into you, or those integrations into your business. So we'll be expanding that out. But there's nothing stopping any of our clients doing that themselves. UniPhi has a documented API embedded in the application itself. All of what needs to happen is that the information between I'll come back to that in a minute. Great, good question. So all that needs to happen is the information calling between the two systems needs to be written. So one company's API, let's call it UniPhi, another company's API, let's call it MYOB. They don't know about each other. Someone has to write this little bit in the middle that says, call information from MYOB and put it into UniPhi, and call information from UniPhi and put it into MYOB. So that's something that can be done by anyone. This is an open API. There's obviously authentication and security control around that API, but the source of it, you have access to that. You can actually get your own team to do that and fit in with your organization. So there was a question raised about, do we integrate with SAP and Oracle? And the answer to that is yes. But the why I'm aware on that is that there are hundreds of different versions of SAP and Oracle, and there's numerous ways of integrating with SAP and Oracle. So yeah, it's not like an MYOB Xero where it can happen out of the box. There's always work that needs to go on to join the dots on one of those integrations when it's a large enterprise integration. But a good worthwhile thing to do if you've got high volume of transactions and you want that single source of truth. And so, yeah, that's a pretty heavy topic for another time. But that's there, and that's for you to start to do that sort of stuff with your marketing products. But in terms of prospects, what we do, if you were using UniPhi as the source for those prospects, is we capture them in our resources module. And then what you could do, just in terms of, say, campaign management, is we have this resource custom fields report, which is basically a dump of information in your resources system that'll include the way that you've classified your people and your organizations. And so you can see here that Alex Rose works for Endor Project Consultants, and he is a prospect. and some will be prospects and some won't. There's 2 pages in this report. You will have other types of metadata that you want to associate to companies and to people. Are they on your newsletter distribution list, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so what you can do is you can actually just dump this out to Excel. It's a flat tabled report designed that way. And then when you do that, depending on the system that you're using, for example, I mentioned Campaign Monitor. This is Campaign Monitor here. This is a subscriber list. It's a list that's already contained. You've already got it. You can come in and basically dump the data out of UniPhi, copy paste, or actually in their system, sorry, just save that information onto somewhere. Like the copy paste like we do, and then just upload that file or drag and drop that file into here, and it'll read those fields that are in UniPhi. So I didn't do anything to that spreadsheet, I just dumped it out. And it'll basically update and not add based on any of the fields that you select here. So you're looking to synchronize on something, and generally it's email. So in here somewhere there'll be email, I probably went past it. And yeah, there it is. And so if Alex's email's already in there and Annie's email's already in there, then it won't add them to the list. And so that way you can basically be continuing to manage the one source of truth in UniPhi and then dump that out into your Campaign Monitor, and it'll add any new prospects or new newsletter people that you want. Equally, what we're doing, there's a few things around this CRM at the moment. If I go to, sorry, I ended up sharing to the wrong screen, so I'm a little bit all over the place at the moment. If I go back into my website, so this is just a public website. This is our blog interface for our website, and as you scroll down, you'll see you can subscribe to the newsletter here. We will be sharing with our clients in the next 3 months the ability to leverage these types of embedded things from your own website directly into UniPhi. So in this instance, it'll just go straight in as a resource contact and as a prospect. So when they type that in, subscribe, that would directly go into the UniPhi database. We also have where it's more of a lead. So you may have a contact form that's more of a lead. If I was to go home, you've got request a demo. This is more of a lead, not a prospect, because they're actually interested. So that would be handled differently, and I'll show you how that would be handled in a moment. But when you use that, that would call a different control. So we'd be giving you these little widgets that you would give to your webmaster, basically embed behind the button event here, and that would then post as a lead into UniPhi. So one's a prospect, one's a lead. And what that means is, if I go back to this particular deployment, a prospect would just come into the resource system, but they would be tagged as a prospect here. And then when you go and do that Excel dump, you can filter on those sorts of things and push them into other systems where necessary. You'll see here as well that you can just dump comments against a person to say what you've done to that prospect to try and get them to move along to a lead, and you can have that conversation thread. If they've moved into someone of interest and they're actually showing some sort of buying signal, we use the issues system for that. I don't see that changing. It's fully functional for what we need. And so folks to go into there. So when someone did a form that was a better form, it meant they were really interested in our product, they were a lead. We normally structure up something like this. In our system now, we've gone a little bit further, but a lot of people have offices that they want to aggregate leads into, and then there's a parent-child there that aggregates them across. And this is basically all the open leads in the organization at the moment. And when that happens, both they come in as a resource, but they also come in their description here so that you don't have to go and find them in the resource. And then as you do actions and assign to people, you'll have comment threads through there to track what you've sent them. You'll have related proposals eventually, hopefully, and things like that. That can also come in from the email system. And so if you're using the Outlook add-in,
sorry, can I ask a question? With your export that you've just done through the Excel, so you've got your report and your resources, and you've exported, then you want to import it in. I noticed you said you're importing it in through a name, a person's name. Can you import it in through a company name?
There was multiple synchronizations on that one. So,
right. So
if I go back to it.
If you wanted to import it in through, like, into your Xero through a company name, you can select it so that it comes across that way?
Yeah, so Xero has, our integration already exists with Xero, and it's got synchronization of the contacts both ways, and that's done on organization. Once it's synchronized, it's actually done on the IDs of the two systems, so that there's no, if you change the organization in one, it doesn't necessarily create a new one in the other one. It's only if you create a new one rather than just edit, so that way it can update in both directions. But yes, even in this one, it's synchronizing on many things. If you didn't want it to synchronize on many things, you could remove that option, skip this field, but it's looking for anything that it could synchronize on.
Yeah, because at the moment our synchronized basically on an email. So if George Smith's email is on 3 companies, his invoices might go to the wrong company.
Right. I don't think any of our accounting integrations synchronize on emails, but yeah, you can also then map through an interface to clean that sort of thing up, which is the correct one.
Okay.
There's a manage contacts in the accounting dashboard. But I'll move on as get through the content.
Thanks.
But yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah, so with the email, I think I'll just go back to that for a second. This is an expression of interest that's come in. I would pull this into the system through our Outlook attachment here. So to UniPhi, it comes up with 4 options. What we'll be doing in this, again, is a dynamic addition of these people and their email addresses to the resource database. It doesn't do that at the moment, so that the resource database captures these people as well. In my, what I would do in this instance is actually capture the documentation first as a new document, and I'd be classifying that document as tender document so that we know that it's tender. And then I would be linking that particular documentation to the sales lead, which I'd be managing as an issue so that I can find out the work. So you can actually save emails into the system more than once. And so once you've saved something, if I just save this without the attachments as an issue, I can then save again as a document to that document there. And so that's building up my sales profile. When I do new issue, I have to make sure I classify it. It's fairly important. And so this classification list is your own, but it'll be, if you're using it for lead management, definitely have a sales category in there and you're off and running. So yeah, in terms of prospects and leads, basically that's the go. That's the 2 parts of the system that we're using: the resources module and the issues module. Then we get to the stage where it becomes something worth bidding against, and what we do there is we create a project and we put it in an opportunity phase. So if we just go back to all projects, what you'll see in the life cycle, again, you label these yourselves, but in concept, what we're talking about for this process is opportunity. And when I select opportunity, you get just the one project at the moment. But if you had a new one, you would create the project in the summary tab, create the new project, flag it into the opportunity phase. And then once you've done that, you would actually then move the issue out of these sales leads and into that project, because it's now moved out of a lead and it's now an opportunity. And so you can do that fairly simply. You just select the check box here and there's a move option, and then you just move it to whichever project's relevant. And so the lead goes out of being a lead and becomes an opportunity. In UniPhi, after that, you can then, I'll just remove this chip over here, create your own methodology for go, no go, and then view that from a portfolio perspective. So if I select that, what you can see here is a series of questions that people have answered against these projects to decide whether they're worth bidding for or not. And there'd be some sort of round table or metric-based decision framework that comes out depending on how you've answered these. And these questions are just dummy questions, but you can make up whichever one you want and then have that appear in a dashboard for people to review. And again, you would use the opportunity filtering system to filter the list down to the ones you've got to consider. If you said no, you would tick these, go to life cycle, select cancelled, and that means you didn't or did not bid or whatever, because these again are your labels. And cancel is probably not right, did not bid. And then if you're going to bid, then you would put it into submission phase for the ones you're going to bid to and start to build on the submission. Once they're into submission, you can start to use UniPhi to build up the estimate. So this is a core part of the enterprise resource planning end-to-end that we're talking about with UniPhi 17. So if I go into this project here, you can see that we have a contract down here called Project Management Services. And you can have unlimited number of fields here. And you can see that the level 1 is lump sum. So we're going to actually invoice and price this as a single fee. But we're going to build it up with a bunch of tasks underneath. And that can go as detailed as you like. So yeah, you can drill into these phases and add more levels to it. But also, once you're happy with the level of tasks, you then start to assign people to this work and add new people. You can actually search directly into the resource pool to add new people into there and start to put hours against the rates. I haven't chosen a very good one now. I think detailed design will do it better for me. So you can see here, this one is able to build up either against the classification or against a person. So if you don't know who's going to be working on it, you can still use the classification and the standard rates there. Obviously, you have the ability to overwrite those rates to say, no, for this, we're going in at 165 for one of those. And so for each deliverable in the system, you're basically able to build up different, I didn't have to tick them out, I just had to type the hours in, it ticked it automatically, and build up a price. And so we've now got a $205,000 fee. Again, depending on your business, depending on the complexity. So we have some businesses that send out quite reasonably nice looking but simple proposal documents we've been able to convert into a UniPhi document. You can use the proposal template. Now, you may use this just even to capture the InDesign or Photoshop or Word or whatever product you've used, because you can obviously upload that finished product into here, and I'll show you the benefits of that. But you can also use UniPhi to create that content. We create all our quotes out of UniPhi. What this is doing, though, is setting up for the ability to automatically flip into post-contract should you win this particular bid. And so there's the attachment where you can upload the proposal if you haven't done it in UniPhi. And once that project's approved and you're going post-contract, you might sign that off, attach it to your contract as a reference schedule at the back of the contract. And so what that gives you the ability to do is, before I even start doing that proposal I just started to work on, I can go all projects here in the Documents tab, because I know all my proposals are in there. And the difference between your standard file share and UniPhi is the ability to look across the portfolio. So most people have a file share where they'll have project, and in there may be the proposal, maybe you've got a proposal folder and then maybe sectors underneath, depending on however you structured it. But you can never just look across the entire portfolio, quickly have a glance at what sort of proposals we've submitted in the past. You can then obviously filter those down into sectors that might have even more relevant information, or any of the other project types like new build or whatever you structure these up at to fit your business. And this really can help you sort of commoditize proposal writing. As an example, yesterday I went into our new office. Unfortunately, I'm not there today. I wanted to be, but we're not. And on the train on the way in, it's a 25-minute train journey. I had to send one of my high priorities in the morning was to get a proposal off to a possible new client. We'd written something almost identical a month ago. And so I was able to find that. I didn't write it, so I didn't know about it, but I found it. I read it and went, that's exactly what I want, copied it, changed a few words. Even the pricing was the same. And so it actually took me 20 minutes of the 25 minutes of the train ride to send off a 35-page proposal, schedule, rollout plan, Gantt chart, price, testimonials, everything in there that I needed. And so that's the sort of turnover churn methodology we're trying to look for through this ability, just to find something simple, create the document. But what you would do in this instance is copy into your new project, and away you go. And so yeah, that's what we did. And that process is working really well for us at the moment, because I don't know, I find proposal writing a fairly arduous task. So anything you can do to simplify it is good. And we've kind of road tested the wording over 10 years on some of these things, but each one will be different. Every every client's got their own little nuances. So sometimes it takes longer than 25 minutes, but you can still start from a base. And you got that standardization look and feel. There's graphics in this thing. There's you know, charts and the like. And then you're just rewording the key messages that fit for that particular client and the like. But the key is to have 20 or 30 different templates, but they're not templates. They're ones that have actually been issued before to other clients. And yeah, and then send it out. And so if we come back to our sort of 14 step, process that we had at the beginning of the session, we'll just take stock of where we're at. Steps I browsed away from. You know, where we're at the moment is we're basically estimated the new bid. And so we've done the prospects and leads, we've assessed the opportunity to bid, we've created an estimate, we've created a proposal. But now what we want to do is also go that next step further and actually cash flow and resource profile out that job. And so if I go back to, this is the new stuff from 17 that gets this virtuous circle going. If I go back into this particular job, what you'll see is some decent subnets going across here. And you can see that I've allocated effort estimates against both people and classification. So what you can do on this now is you can actually schedule out that effort. And so you can go in and start to put in a schedule and a phasing algorithm that will basically put an incredibly small amount of time, because I might make that 200. So this is how many hours that Christopher has. Now, we haven't started the job, so it'll be the same as the contract hours, but I've just changed it a little bit. And so that's now put out 200 hours in the past. If I change that again, let's get it somewhere in the future. And basically, once you've got this set up, you can change these dates and automatically update the schedule. And so there's Christopher's timeline going out there. That actually rolls up. So you can do him task by task. There's another one there. Across the contract, that actually rolls up to our main resource planning module, which is per project. Now, you can actually just go and do this in per project, and equally, you can go in and do it per classification. So when I go to the resource planning here, into this system will be the 5.6 and the 9 and whatever for Christopher for his time going forward. And you can have that set against a baseline. To baseline, just re-baseline once you've got your forecast set, and that gives you a baseline to compare to. And then Christopher will start to timesheet against this project and we'll start getting actuals against that. And so from the original contract that we priced up the job and putting in effort estimates, we've also got requests, it doesn't do it at the moment, to go the other way, where you put the time in and a percent of their allocation, because you can use percent here. That'll give you a total number of hours. You put that into the contract. At the moment, you've got to put the total in the contract first and then phase it out. We go the other way, where you put 20 hours a week for 10 weeks, and then that calculates how much the total should be for the estimate. But the key being is that this is what is going to end up being the contract and the invoice once you win the job. Now, if you've got this set as a phasing method weekly, so that it's automatic every month or every week in this instance, and I go to the summary section of this project, if it was a opportunity or submission phase project, a pre-sale, pre-award phase project, then the win percentage and the revenue percentage will be editable. Because it's post-contract, it's 100%. And by changing these two numbers, it will automatically change, as long as you've got an automated setting on that resource plan, the hours. Similarly, you can change that profile to cash flow and do the same thing on that. And it'll convert based on milestone claims or whatever, that it'll then risk adjust that cash flow based on whatever percentage you put in here. So the two numbers are basically like, what chance is this client going with me and how much are they going to screw me down on price? So you might think you've got a 50% chance of winning and you're going to have to discount product by 10%. You would have 50% and 90% there. And so the pipeline cash flow, the project might be $100,000, but you'd be forecasting $40,000 of fees from that job. And the same would go with hours. And so Christopher's time would be reduced down by 40 to 40% of whatever the resource allocation was for him. As soon as you win the job, it automatically escalates that. If it's auto-phased, it automatically escalates those values back up to 100%, so you don't have to go in and maintain that, and so the resource profile would automatically adjust. Within the system, there's other things, and we'll be building more into it as things evolve, but when you're in the schedule, you can offset here, so that if projects get delayed, you just offset by a set number of weeks, and it'll push everything out by that number of weeks. The other thing that you can do is schedule the lifecycle phases. And so if this is linked to a lifecycle phase called tendering, you can change the dates there and it'll cascade down. So that's managed in the time module. But equally, it goes both ways. So if I change the dates here and I link it to tendering, tendering will become the 10th of November and 7th of April in the time module. So this data pushes from this system into the time module. And so when you go into the schedule, the tendering, it's because it linked first 13th of July and 30th, so that's why I went that way. But if there was no dates there, or if I did those after I've linked it now and I change it in the schedule, it'll update these dates here to be what I put into the schedule. If I change these dates, it'll flow to the schedule. And so you can have this high level percent allocation. I think generally, but mostly how it's used, people are 20% in concept and 30% in schematic or whatever it is. And then as world changes, you've got maybe 4 dates, 6 dates to change to push all that data around, so that they're not going to affect things, that your cash flow updates with that information and your resource plan for that person, for that project, updates with that new profile. So that becomes the management and maintenance of this exercise, either doing it through here or doing it through the contracts module. But the two are connected in the same way that the resource planning module in the resources section is connected to this contract as well. So if you're resourcing people, it's going into their resource plan, because you may have a mix. And this is the thing we've tried to build over 17 years. There's enough different interfaces to handle different requirements. Sometimes you just want to say a person's on a job for 10% of their time during this project's life. Other times you want to do a work breakdown structure, get some nitty-gritty detail in there, and then allocate that to people and build up the plan from there. In this system now, you can do both, and essentially have hours allocated in the contract come through the resource plan, but also just have a project where you select a project, go to the resource profile, go to the resource plan, and you just phase them out, either by percent or by hours. And within this interface, there's the ability to do that on bulk add. You can say, okay, everyone's going to be starting on the 1st of November. This project's going to go for 52 weeks. And we're going to do 50%. Now that'll work for everyone other than this person here, because I don't have a standard to actually work out what 50% is. Let's just click Miranda, click apply. And based off everyone's standard profile, they've got different hours allocated, which will go for that person during that project. And you basically resource plan for that project. That person has a start and end date. So because they've finished, it won't actually put in those times. Because of that, it says, oh, this person's not working for you anymore, so how can you actually have them on the project? And so, yeah, anyway, so that's now done, and we've resource planned out that project. As you do that, you'll see at the end when we come to dashboards the sort of benefit you get from doing that. The next benefit into this comes through the next phase of, well, how did we do? That's the plan. How did we do? And what we're using through this is the timesheet module. And so in the article I wrote, this has become quite an important module for us to get what our ultimate concept was when we built the application, which is distributed data capture, getting information from people without having to meet with them. And so what we're looking to do in this instance is, if I go to, let's say, Linux, right, you can see this particular project here. Unlike these ones, which are just standard tasks at the time, this is actually a contract deliverable. So Helm's Deep Apartments has a schematic design. It's got to be done by the 30th of March. We had 528 hours originally in the schedule, done 187, we've got 341 remaining. And Annie, in her role as timesheet person, has the ability to update this information. So Annie can write comments here, she can change that. As she puts her time in, she'll see that the hours come down. She can adjust that. And then the project manager, when I go and look at the contract amount, will see that there's more hours than there was in the budget, and they can start to ask questions around that. But equally, she can, this is timesheet comments, so that kind of more things that said what you've been doing. Whereas and he can click on that and come in and actually write a comment and say, right, why she changed this to be 159 hours and give a reason in here. And so through that process, you can actually get quite a lot of information about that contract without having to have the progress meetings that make you want to, maybe pinch yourself to make sure you're still alive. And so now we're back into the contract. I can go to the earned value on Helm's Deep, and I can start to analyze that progress where schematic has had this much cost, but we had no planned cost. And I can start to actually apply milestones and stage gates and put % complete against that to build up an earned value profile against that to say, okay, we've burned 90% of our hours or dollars in this instance from this view. Have we earned 90% of the work? And the fact that there's no planned cost in it means that wouldn't work. But that's the concept of this earned value, is to be able to then, there's 3 metrics involved. There's your actual cost, which is based off the hours you actually spent on the job. There's the baseline cost, which was used to build up your estimate a few moments ago. And then there's how well that actual time has been spent. It might be that you've flown through the job and it's already complete. And so even though the baseline cost to date was supposed to be $10,000, you've actually spent $20,000, but you finished the job. The overall project cost was supposed to be $30,000. So in that instance, you can analyze and say, okay, we spent more already, but we finished the job and we're going to be under budget. It's all good. So it enables you to do those 3 metric assessments. How much did we think we were going to have spent so far? How much have we spent? And what has that spending earned us in terms of completing this job? And that's done in this particular screen. You can either type the % complete or create a methodology around it, where you've got some sort of rules for how much earned value you get as you progress. And again, you can actually analyze the hours and the commentary by clicking into that comments. You get to see Annie's comment there, and you get to analyze the hours that have been done against that job versus the baseline that was set up originally. And so, a project manager running their project with a group of people doesn't necessarily need to meet with those group of people all the time to get progress. They'll meet with those people to discuss what they're going to do about this variance, but they're not going into the meeting to find out that there's a variance. And how would they know anyway? Because the timesheet data is in another system that no one looks at. So they'd have to get it anecdotally saying Annie thinks, oh, this is more than I can actually do. And there's no real way of knowing how much more and what the sort of reasons are for that. So the idea being meetings still happen, but they happen on a proactive basis where you're discussing remedial action on a particular problem. You can actually have issues coming against this contract deliverable as well, and that might then be a further way of justifying why this particular schematic design has gone awry. So as the project progresses, if you've got the automated scheduling in here, if you've used the phasing method for this stuff, as your accountant or someone in finance closes a financial period because the month's finished and all the reporting is done, that's done in our configuration module for system administrators. Once that's done, it will look at the actual for that particular month, both from a time perspective and a dollar perspective. And if it's under or over, it'll then adjust the remaining. So it is possible, once you've set this up, to have it just keep ticking itself over every time it comes in. So if I'm on a weekly basis there on this particular profile and we close out January and I didn't do as many hours in January as I thought, then the remaining hours automatically get rephased out as that person closes out that period. That can obviously be reviewed and adjusted by the project manager in their project, but as a way of limiting the number of times you have to maintain that system, if you've set up this automation, that's what will happen as an ongoing measurement. That timesheet data will obviously also be used to invoice, and so when we come into the invoice, there's the ability to review at the bottom here the hours that have been put to the job, both from a contract perspective on a whole, hours to date versus remaining versus the contract, and there's the variance again, and then also how much in the period. Now the period normally has sound logic as to where the start date starts from. If you've invoiced before, it'll be the date of the last invoice. If you haven't, it'll be the commencement date of the contract. which is entered in the edit screen, in the detail screen, sorry, up here. But neither of those have existed, so I can actually look at that and say, show me myself, just manually put it in, and that'll show me from August through the 26th of December, which is nothing. So even though there's been 768 hours of timesheet booked to this, there's been nothing lately, so then I'd have to make my mind up whether there's anything I could invoice or not. If there were hours here and you just wanted to claim the time to do and charge with a fixed upper limit fee or something like that, you can just click claim time and it'll put the hours in the period up against the relevant contract deliverables up here in the claim quantity, ready for you to adjust. But if it's milestone claim, it's more about analysing whether there's variations you can claim on top of those milestones, and then working out what % complete on this schematic you can justify in claiming for your invoice, which you then just type in. But the integration with the timesheets is the fact that the data's down here. You don't have to run a report and have someone mark up what to claim. It can be done through this screen. So once we've got all of that, we've got some data that we can start to analyse. There's 4 reporting platforms in UniPhi. The first one is this embedded dashboard process. So each project, when you jump in, it has some graphical information about things about some high-level numbers on where things are at for that particular project. And as you go across, each of the different modules have that type of capability. Some have them for per project and for pipeline, for portfolio. So this is the entire portfolio of the organisation. Target lines of where you're supposed to be from actuals for this financial year. You can change that to get different numbers. This is new, getting actuals to a point in time where you want to select the 2 rather than just what's been closed. And then you can also filter that down into different sectors and get different results to analyse that. That's the first one. The second one is our reporting engine here. One of the best ones for profitability is the project profitability. Now, sorry, project analysis. Project analysis. Now, I ran a webinar about 12 months ago on the 17,000 different ways that clients calculate profit. So our out-of-the-box profitability calculations may not work for you. For example, some of the complications is cross-charging people's time. Some of them, they have different ways of assessing the fully burdened rates. Everyone has these nuances to the way they calculate profit. But out of the box, there's a concept, and again, it goes back to the beginning of the session where I was talking about, UniPhi will guide you through conceptually what you can get out of the tool, and then these can be amended to fit your particular methodology. And so in this particular report, it really does show you, even though it's not visual, from a numbers perspective, the capability of the product and what it can give you from a profitability perspective. So this is your estimate of completion revenue, which comes from the contract system. It's whatever the total value of the contract is, including possible variations. So it's your forecast cost. The agreed revenue is what you've agreed with the client, which includes approved variations. This is what you've invoiced to date. This is from the resource planning and any disbursement costs or subcontractor costs that you've got in the contract system. Is the total cost of completion. Actual cost is based off timesheets plus any payments you've made to those subconsultants plus any disbursements. You divide the actuals cost to date by the forecast cost of completion. 520 divided by 13 million in this case gives you 0. 1 million divided by 1.26, 85%. Then we take that 85%, we multiply it by the final forecast fee to get an earned value. And so it's saying there should be $1.89 million worth of revenue. We've only invoiced 1.2, so there's $691,000 of work we've done that we haven't invoiced for. The profit margin today is 12%. That's fairly simple. It's invoice and actual, so actuals over invoice. And like actual cost, so invoice minus cost. And then at completion is the forecast cost of completion compared to the final forecast revenue. So 1.2 compared to 2.2. This looks at the results in the period that you've selected up the top here. So there's a start and an end date. We have a long one there just to get some data into the system. And so this can help to see how you tracked in the month. Normally it's used for the month and anything that might require invoicing. And then this is how much you've got to still deliver on these projects, which is basically the difference between what you've invoiced and what the final forecast fee is. And so there's a lot of information in there. And our third methodology for reporting can leverage all of this data and start to make it a little more visual, which is our Power BI dashboards. And so when I go into here, you can see the different tabs down the bottom. One of them is project profitability. It's similar to that report, but it's got some color in it to check margins, red, amber, green margins around that portfolio of projects. This one looks at profit per different locations: Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and some with no name. And so, a bit like Clint Eastwood. And then, this enables you to see what office is doing well, what office is not. And there's no collation, there's no consolidated spreadsheets, there's no massaging of the information as it comes along. And then this is kind of the full circle bit here now. Oh, before I go to full circle. So these two here are your resource planning. And so these are the percentage allocations people have over time. This has how many people in the business you need for different classifications. So pretty light on business at the moment, but you can see through this process, your associate quantity surveyors are going up, project managers are going up, we might need to recruit. These are the people. If I click on the little drill through thing here, I can see the projects that they're working on that makes up their percent allocation, and track people who might be red, amber, green again, over allocated. Okay. So that's the sort of portfolio benefit you're getting for putting in that effort of resource planning in the contracts module or at the project level. And then full circle into the clients analysis, where you can see here you've got clients where you've won jobs and how many are pending and lost, just as a count. So the Rivendell Developments company is your best client as far as number of jobs, but down here it does it by dollars, and that's Switchmaster. You can then get interactions between that and UniPhi. It's like, well, what jobs are they? If I tick on that, this is all the Rivendell jobs, what they're worth. And there's Rivendell there, it's got a few losses, some pending and some won. And then if I actually wanted to see information about those particular jobs, I can just click the little link there, and it takes me into UniPhi, and I can start to see information about that particular job. And remove the aged care, it would have selected that particular project. Let's try that again. That's might be a closed project. If it's still live, you'll be able to see details, more metric details. Let me try another. There we go. Dummy data is a bit tricky, but you can see that project had already finished. This one's in flight because you've got all these extra subnavs there. It's in development phase, and the new details section just gives you that integrated dashboard again on where things are at. So the contract value, how much of it's original versus variations, the cash flow profile, baseline versus forecast and budget, profit. Oh, this one's losing money, and it's taking longer, and we haven't invoiced as fast as we should, but there's negative WIP for some reason, and a little Gantt chart there. So from a Power BI dashboard, you can then get a UniPhi embedded dashboard and just get some profiling on that particular job and see how it's performing. This dashboard is really about trying to work out which clients to target next, which industries. You can create your own around that. This links in the leads as well, and when you actually won these jobs with these parties. So again, if I tick on Rivendell here, they'll come up in here somewhere, and this is based on awarded dates, so possibly none of their contracts have the awarded dates, so data's everything. And then this is back to where we started around any existing sales leads that are coming out. And again, I can click on the link there, it takes me to the issue, and I can read the conversation that's happening on that particular sales lead and see what's going on. So what we're trying to do in these is generate the high level analysis to find out any areas of concern, and then be able to drill into the UniPhi in detail through either the detail section here or the issue section here to get that. And there's almost limitless analysis you can do here. So this is fully open to the clients to analyze. This dashboard was actually created this morning just for this presentation. And so, yeah, you can come up with any kind of analysis you possibly think, and then build it in an hour or two and publish it within your own UniPhi for other people to consume. And do that detailed analysis on what's going on in your business from a customer perspective, from a project perspective, from a resource capacity perspective, all the same data source. The contract has the customer, the contract has the resources, the contract has the dollar value, it has the timeline, the cash flow. It's all coming from that single data source. So that's the concept of end-to-end enterprise management. There's lots of other systems that could have been involved in assisting with the data sets that have come in here, but again, they can be pulled into UniPhi for this type of dashboard analysis and then deep dive into the reasons behind any issues or opportunities. And you know, it's just about working out exactly what applications you want to use in your business and for what purpose, and then working out how they can best lock into this overarching one application to more concept, and those steps that we went through from prospect through to profitability. So I'm going to